History of Karnataka and Tipu Sultan are subjects close to his heart.
Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan are two very fascinating figures of Indian history. Hyder Ali was a builder of a state. You imagine he was only an ordinary soldier or a nayak in the army. To rise to the highest position of establishing a great state, Karnataka in that period was quite a power in the south, was something great. Let me tell you how it happened. Any leader who has got two abilities in him will come up. One is the intellect, the mind, the shrewdness, the thought. The other is the ability to hold the sword, power. Hyder had both. It so happened that in the Carnatic Wars, the East India Company man, Nawab of Carnatic, Muhammad Ali Wala Jah, was made a prisoner in Majura camp in Tiruchinapalli fort. He wrote to the ruler of Mysore that if only you extend help, I am going to surrender this fort of Tiruchinapalli. They agreed. And the man who sent as the commander of the army was this Hyder Ali. He won the war. After the war, when the treaty was to be implemented, they did not agree. We are not going to give Tiruchinapalli fort to Mysore simply because you just helped us. Therefore, immediately Hyder Ali turned against the English. He went as the ally of the English. When they did not accept the terms of the treaty, he became an enemy and fought. That war went on for 4 long years, not 1 or 2. And at that time, he was very careful not to engage them in the day fight, but only in the surprise night attack. He went on capturing the armament, the weapons, and all the money of the British. In 4 years, he amassed a lot of wealth. Not only this equipment, but then he learned the art of war also from the English. Having come here, he used the same technique. The things had become very bad for the Raja here. He could not pay even the salary of the soldiers. There was a dharna, the satyagraha kind of a thing. Hyder said, I would extend you the money because he had brought a lot of money. I will lend you the money on one condition, that you must allow certain taluka to me to collect the revenue and the income there. That was agreed. So the Marathas attack, all sorts of problems every year. Within 10 years, all the state in this way passed into the hands of Hyder, and then the Raja was nothing. But later on they realized that they have lost the entire state to a soldier in a very tricky manner. Therefore, they had a conspiracy. One fine morning, he lost all that he had. Like Babur, he was roaming here and there without anything at all. The entire family was captured. The small incident that took place changed the history of Hyder. He was hungry for 3 days. He went to a village. He said that I have not had my meal for the last 3 days. Give me something. She spread a leaf and poured the porridge. We call the ragi, a kind of a millet here. It was very hot. He put his palm on that porridge, burnt his finger. Therefore, he was very miserable. That lady had a hearty laugh. She said, you are doing just the same thing which Hyder is doing now. The moment he heard his name Hyder, he was greatly excited. What is he doing? He wants to conquer what he has lost. And for that, he is going just into the center of the power, that is Srirangapattam. What he should do, he should conquer from the periphery, from the frontiers, then go to the capital. Therefore, this porridge also will be cold on the periphery of the leaf, not at the center. So that struck him. He followed that advice gradually, and then power changed. The first thing he did was to give a basket full of jewelry to that lady. So anyway, he was in a position. Hyder and Tipu are the only Nawabs or the rulers of this land who fought not one for 4 major wars against the British. They were the only one who consistently opposed the British. Not only opposed, but they won the war. In the entire history of British rule in India, there hardly anyone who inflicted any blow. It was Hyder Ali in the first Mysore war inflicted blow and forced them to seek the treaty. Not only in the first Mysore war, but also in the second Mysore war also, the commanders lost their life, and he extended the kingdom, and the present Karnataka is almost the same size as Hyder Ali had built up in those days. So he was very shrewd. There are two personalities in Indian history who were illiterate but still made a name. One was Akbar, who was also illiterate. He did not know anything, but is still a great ruler in his own right. The second was Hyder Ali, who also ate him. You must read Edmund Burke's lectures in the parliament in order to know the importance of this man. When we come to Tipu, he is a more fascinating figure. He was the person who offered his blood to write the history of free India. It was he who said the life of a lion for a day is far better than the life of a jackal for 100 years. If liberty is gone, the soul is gone. He fought all his life against the British. He tried his best to seek the support of the Nizam of Hyderabad and the Marathas also. When they did not come forward, he linked the small state with the globe, with France, with Turkey, with Afghanistan, with Iran, and so on. He was a very innovative one, very sharp. I mean, a lot of contrast between the two. Hyder was both militarily strong and politically shrewd, but this man was educated, very serious about the values of life, but then not so very diplomatic. But then he contacted Napoleon, invited. His plan was the French had helped the Americans to win the War of Independence. Therefore, if the French were to help the Indians also, the English could be defeated here, and then India could gain the independence. Therefore, Napoleon agreed. He came as far as Egypt. But when the British were powerful with the sea power, they burnt all his ships and he was landed. Even then he moved overland, came as far as Syria. But again, a man called Sidney Lee inflicted a blow on Napoleon and he had to run back to his own. Not being disheartened by this failure, Tipu contacted the Afghan ruler, a man called Zaman Shah. Zaman Shah was the grandson of Ahmad Shah Abdali, who had fought the third battle. So he had come as far as Lahore. The English were very greatly perturbed, but the governor of Bombay by name Duncan suggested a scheme. You must send a man from Lucknow to Iran in order to induce the Iranian Shia ruler to fall on the Sunni Afghan ruler Zaman Shah. So a man called from Lucknow was sent to Baba Khan, who was the ruler of Iran. Immediately that ruler of Iran falls on Herat, the territory. Zaman Shah also goes. So that scheme of Tipu also failed. The third thing was to once again gain the help of the French in the Nizam's court. Nizam had good alliance only with the English. Tipu somehow made the Nizam accept the French help. There was one Raymond. If Napoleon had come, Zaman Shah had come, the French help and Raymond from Nizams also had come, things would have entirely changed. But then that did not happen, and somehow their subsidiary system. But what we learn from Tipu is more important, namely, don't cut a tree to get at the fruit. The Indians, for the sake of narrow benefits, quarreled among themselves and lost the liberty. I mean, he was very innovative. He changed the names of ever so many cities, weights and measures, coinage, and even the calendar. Ever so many changes he brought about. I was saying that he was the first person to think of navy. No one had thought of earlier at all. And then the rocket system, How it happened is very interesting. You know, in the festivals, a kind of firework used to put gunpowder into the bamboo and then explosion. Casually it happened. It occurred to him that it could be made a weapon. He thought of the rocket system, and then Napoleon was defeated because the British used this kind of rockets against the war in the Battle of Waterloo. The rocket system, even in Florida, the Americans have acknowledged and have got a great painting of those days of the rocket system. When President Abdul Kalam went there, he appreciated. At least the Americans have acknowledged the contributions of the Indians so far as the rocket system is concerned. The dam we see in Karnataka is called the Kaveri Dam, Vrindavan, Krishna Raj Sagar Dam. He conceived the idea of that. He was so very innovative that even was very fond of trees, environment. Every letter he would say that give me some seeds, some plants and so on and so forth. The system of punishment in the jail was very, very interesting. Anyone who was guilty or a criminal would be made to sow and plant, water the trees depending upon the gravity of the offense. If the gravity of the offense was very serious, he would be asked to plant a mango tree or a coconut tree, which would take long time, otherwise small, a kind of thing. He thought even a cooperative bank. In the cooperative bank, the income or a dividend will be given more to those who invested less. If the investment was more, the dividend would be high, would be less. So he thought of encouraging saving system. He thought of the marketing system, established ever so many factories within the country and abroad also, in Basra, in Jeddah and so on. The state capitalism was itself. Kind of a socialist-like thing he experimented that. He was fond even of a Jacobin club. Those were the days when the revolution took place, and then in Seringapatam he established the Tree of Liberty. He called himself as Citizen Tipu. He was very fond of the revolutionary thoughts of the French also. So, ever so many innovations, policies were there. A very fascinating figure of Indian history. Yeah.
The professor, always inspired by history and historians.
I was greatly influenced by two Indian historians, two historians of England and one of America. The Indian historian is my own teacher in Mysore University. His name was Professor Kasturi. He would teach Greek history or Roman history as if it was a romance, it was a fiction. He was greatly fascinated by the events, by the presentation. It occurred to me that I should also become a teacher like Kasturi. From that time, somehow or other, interest in me for history was increased. The other professor was from Aligarh University. He is Professor Muhammad Habib, who is the father of the present Irfan Habib. Professor Muhammad Habib was a great scholar in his own right. When I first went to him, he said that you would do something on medieval history, on Hyder, on Tipu. He asked me a question whether I knew Persian. I said, I don't know Persian, but I know Urdu. He said that those who know Urdu, to learn Persian is not at all difficult. He gave a book called Hamlat-e-Haidari. That Hamlat-e-Haidari, about 500 pages, all in Persian, and asked me to translate that into English within a fortnight. I took a dictionary, tried hard. Within fortnight, I translated that Persian work into English. That gave me a grounding in the Persian language. And later on, the technique of research and all that, I was greatly obliged to him, Professor Muhammad Habib. It was he who invited me from Mysore to Aligarh in order to do my first PhD on Tipu Sultan. The third one is my own guide, Dr. Kenneth Arthur Ball Hatchett by name, a professor in SOS, that is the School of Oriental and African Studies. It's a very famous school in London University. He was my professor. And those professors took such great interest even in language. Warren Hastings is the name in which the S is the word, letter in the name. Many a time in writing fast, we would put apostrophe S in a little distant place, not exactly where it ought to be. Every time he would put a red ink margin. How many times should I tell you to put apostrophe correctly? It thrilled me again, a kind of minute interest I took. The second example I would give, what I learned from Professor Bal Hatchett is, every time when I write something and all that, he would say more analysis, more analysis, more analysis. Once I asked him, what do you mean by this kind of more analysis, more analysis? Then he explained that history is a subject which is like we have to do the CID job, detective job. What has happened in the past we don't know. We have to recreate the entire history. You imagine a thief has come, robbery has taken place, from where he came, how did he break window, how did he do that, kind of entire history I got to imagine, observe the phenomena and write the analysis. He explained the whole thing in such a beautiful manner that later on whatever thing I have done is all because of the guidance I had from that man. Another British historian is Arnold Toynbee, a great philosopher, a great thinker, who has written 12 volumes, The Study of History. He has examined the cultures of the whole world, all the civilizations from the earliest period down to this period, and 26 of them, his philosophy of challenge and response, the genesis, the growth, the decay of how cultures, civilizations come into existence, how they develop, how they grow, is all a very fascinating story that he has written. And then the genesis and birth is a set of circumstances that are neither very favorable nor very unfavorable. It's something like the ground. You want to have a plant, a garden and all that. If the soil is very rocky, nothing would grow. If the soil is very fertile, then only human flowers will not come. The ideal type of circumstances necessary for any culture to grow. Then about the growth, he said, the differentiation to integration, from integration to differentiation. It's a kind of a withdrawal and return philosophy of Arnold Toynbee that he gave. It is something like, you imagine a man is a cricketer, he has to throw his ball. In order to go towards the trump, he goes back only to come back with and throw the ball with greater velocity. Therefore, it is conquest and consolidation. It is withdrawal and return. It is all a kind of, every creativity is the fusion of the opposite. Every creativity is the fusion of the opposite, is the philosophy of Arnold Toynbee, who has given, which impressed me very much in history and in his philosophy. Then about Will Durant also world history and the kind of a style he built up. Very fascinating. History, like poetry, must touch and stir and move the heart of the people and must delight. It is delightful. These are the 2 or 4 people who influenced me greatly. I am not very happy about how history is being taught in our schools, colleges or the universities, because they have not understood what history is. History is mind clothed in events. History is science, no less, no more. History is not merely knowing and understanding the past, but also giving us a clue how to complete what has been begun in the past. History is reenacting the past experience. It is reviving the past experience. It is finding new meaning into the past experience. It is finding new direction to the experience of the past. This is not happening. It is merely information dwelling in. Any university or a college is not merely information imparting institution. Therefore, history is to be known how it begins. Let me say how history begins. History begins from an invisible point. It makes its circles larger and larger and larger. Its flight becomes swifter and swifter and swifter, until at last it shoots like a flaming comet from star to star until it touches eternity. I made a long statement, but in order to understand its meaning, let me give an example. In 1884, the seed of the Indian National Congress was sown not by an Indian but by a foreigner, whom at the time just an invisible point, how it became the circle larger and larger, the moderates and extremists, until at last we made the British go lock, stock, barrel from this country. Therefore, it becomes eternity. History is to be taught in a different light altogether, which is not happening today. I am not very happy about how history is being written today in India. Unfortunately, it is written from the viewpoint of the ruler. And when the Muslims won power, they went on praising the sultans and the rulers of that place. When the British were in power, they once again made the British as the supreme benefactors of this country. And likewise, after our independence, there is a little twist or a change also in history. It happened before independence itself. National historians played an important role, national historian, because history is one subject which is very weak in the pantheon of Indian culture. Clio is missing here. Deliberately they said in history it is only the praise of a ruler and so on. This world is not that important, hence they did not pay much attention. Only later on, when the Muslims came, who had a historical sense, they made. And then they did one mistake. Although Eliot and Dawson have published 8 volumes, only the summary of the chronicles the Muslims wrote, but then there is a defect in it. The historians were all the court historians of the Sultan. Even if he lost the battle, they wrote he won a wonderful victory in the battle. Therefore, subjective element, not the objective element, but the subjective element had come. That was the basis for the British to malign the Indian historians. Later on, the nationalists also used history for their own purpose. But then it resulted in a twist in the sense that when it came to the medieval Indian history, the rulers, whether it was Alauddin Khilji or Aurangzeb or this man and this man, the nationalists once again. And then the Muslim historians also were more excited than the Hindu historians, and they lost the balance and they went on. This kind of a thing that, one ruler against the other. The Muslims went on praising Mahmud or Ghaznavi or Aurangzeb or Sher Shah or someone, and then there they attacked them. So nationalist historians also. Later on, after independence, once again a change came. It was not objective history. My point here is, in a small country like Germany, Prussia, where the history was responsible for uniting 360 small states into one. History became the divisive factor in our country, where an integrated, united country was divided into 2, into 3. Therefore, if history is well used, well written, blessings will be there. If history is ill used or abused, disaster would take place.
As a Vice Chancellor, he learnt many a lesson.
I am very fortunate to be the Vice Chancellor of not one but 2 universities. And again, not established universities, but new universities. I have a joke of saying that to be a VC of an established university is something like going to a showroom, buy the Maruti car, put petrol, go home. But new university is go to a workshop, make a machine out of that, and then run the show. It was like that Mangalore University. But Goa University was still worse. It was something like go to the iron ore, dig the metal and bring it to the factory and then shape the car. Because at least in Mangalore University there was a center, there was a college which became a university. But in Goa University I had to buy the land actually. The government land was there midst of which there was private property about 40 hectares. I had to purchase that property. And again, it was a very challenging job because in Goa, the people were not reconciled to accept me as the Vice Chancellor, because there was a person who was hoping for 13 long years for that post. When he did not get it, in the beginning there were a lot of problems. They went even to the High Court lodging a case that it was necessary. Someone from another state has been now jumped into Goa. But anyway, we won the case. The court did not accept it, and then later on everything was smooth. I was very happy building. It is a very challenging job, but at the same time very satisfying, because every time it is not like repairing the old house. It is conceiving something new of your own design. I did my level best to see that 2-3 things are done. New departments that are relevant to the needs of the society must be established, like biotechnology, computer science, moral science, and so on. New departments of present day needs, they were established. Then the second thing was how to motivate them to do creative work. It was very essential, because we had to create an intellectual ecology in the university system. It is not just counting 30 days, draw the salary, counting 35 years, draw the pension. It is a kind of very serious job where love, labor, patience, mind, everything is involved. I would say that every research scholar must have 3 important parameters. He has to choose a subject which is very useful, relevant to the needs of the society. Then he must do quality work. Without quality work, there is no need. And the third thing is, he has to finish the job within a time schedule. He can't take 10 years. Now, about the quality of research work, they say if you copy from one book, it is plagiarism. But if you copy from 10 books, it is a PhD degree. That kind of a quality must not be there. The second important thing I did as a VC is the linkage of the university with industry, with commerce, with industry, with business, because those people had to invest in the university for research work, and both of them will be benefited. Fortunately, both in Mangalore and Goa, there were industrialists who cooperated. And then the third important thing I did was, particularly in Mangalore, to establish several special chairs, but the funding is limited from the government side. We have to generate funds. There is a lot of money in the country. If only we need how to utilize it. There were so many institutions in Delhi, several. That was a time, very good old time, where money was available for some good work. So every time I would go and meet different departments of research and help them to give us the grant. It was a very successful experiment that happened in establishing the chairs and then the research work, kind of a thing. We did it.
Through social service, he discovered a new calling in life.
Let me tell you, my social service started when I was a lecturer in a college. I think I owe to my wife for the thought. Once she said that you are teaching in a college or the university is okay. What are you doing to the poorer section of the society? Why don't you do something to the roots, to the primary and to the pre-primary? That made me think, and we started about 16 pre-primary schools. There was no place to go. It was a mosque, particularly the veranda of the mosque. Until afternoon it will be vacant. We asked the people, they obliged, and like that it was possible within a short period to start a number of schools in a thickly populated area, in the Muslim minority area. And then gradually we helped them also to come up primary, and then I worked for 10 years in order to build about more than a dozen coups. When I went to Goa, I gave charge to somebody else. Then some problem there, they did not pay attention to the routes, the primary and the pre-primary and the upper primary. They went vertical. They started the college and so on. Some problem there also happened, and then Provident problem, and many of these schools were established or abolished. It is Muslim Education Society that started, was the first thing that I did in social work. It is still running, it is quite happy. Secondly, when I came back from Goa, a man who was active for more than 30 years, when suddenly retires, no job to do, he feels helpless. I want to do something for that. Went here, there and everywhere, and then to do some work. It did not happen. Some family event started. Family event was responsible to take up social service. It was this, my brother-in-law, that is my sister's husband, crossed his century, became more than 100 years. How to celebrate was the problem. And then people suggested we shall have a feast, we will go to the village and have a night dinner and so on. But then the secretary of this place suggested, why should we not do something better than simply eating? Then we thought of a nursery school in a slum area, and that was the beginnings about 1992, today almost 19 years ago, nearly 2 cases. And then we started a nursery school, and several other things followed thereafter. From that slum area, we want to do some quality work, and then there also the history behind it. We want to do a kind of a adult literacy service in the night classes. There was no electricity. We chose a slum area where there was no water, no drainage, no road, no electricity. No, fortunately, everything is there. When you go there, you will understand how thick the population is. So it came up like that. We wanted electricity for adult literacy classes. I went to same Khurshid Alam Khan, who had become very close to me, brought a letter from the governor to the commissioner of MUDA, that is Mysore Urban Development Society. But that Siddhartha, who was commissioner, he said, you have brought the letter all right, but then government rules against it. If I violate the government rules, the government will punish me. At that time, the governor may not come to my help. Then I asked him, what should I do? Do something better, go to a better locality, start a quality school. Where is the land? I will give you the land, he said. Then he opened his chamber and gave a notification of CA sites, Community Amenity Service, where they had called for application for sites. There were hardly about 8 days left. Within that period, we formulated the Sultan Shahid Education Trust, collected the money, deposited and all that. We submitted the report. And then he recommended 1.5 acre of land for the school. But then by the time the final board was finalized the matter, he was transferred. Then that land was given to somebody else, to Mrs. Banumaya, Banumaya also was an educationist. He had passed away. His wife wanted that land. She got it. But a consolation prize, 1/2 acre of land, the present plot, 200 feet by 100 feet, it was given to us. This was the land from where we wanted. Then the same Khurshid Alam Khan made me a member of Dr. Zakir Hussain College in Delhi, of which the president is the Prime Minister of this country. At that time, the Prime Minister was Narsimha Rao. We went to his residence. The meeting did not take place on time. He was a little late and all that. By that time, I was talking to Sayyid Hamid Saab, who was the Vice President of Maulana Azad Education Foundation. Then I recited a verse of a poet called Mir Taqi Mir. ऐ शोर क़ियामत हम सोते ही रह जाएं, इस राह से गुजरे तो हमको भी जगह जाना. That verse was excited. It meaning the day of judgment. The man is sleeping and asking a friend, if you pass this way, make me wake up so that I could answer. So the position of the Muslim is so bad, he was excited and asked me, why don't you apply to Maulana Azad Education Fund, where we are going to help you to build an institution. And he also added, the maximum we could give is 50 lakhs, not more than that. I had not heard of more than 1 lakh or 1,000. When I heard 50 lakh, I got excited. Then the moment I came here, within a week, I prepared a project report of women's college, not 50 but 48 lakhs. But again, he was so good, Sayyid Hamid Sahab, that he sanctioned 45 lakhs of rupees. When I got that chunk of money, we had this institution and several institutions, and the property of Sultan Shahid Education runs into several crores now. It happened only because of the name of Maulana Azad. He extended the help. Subsequently, something happened and on. Then we have classes here from nursery, from KG to PG. I am very fond of saying from KG to PG because we have kindergarten here also, and also postgraduate. Fortunately, we have good staff also. One professor, Gopal Krishna, was the principal of the B.Ed college. He did wonderful work. And he was succeeded by another principal called Jai Prakash. He is also doing exceeding work. I am fortunate in a way that a kind of a family affairs stay, not for money, not for award, not for name, not for anything else, but to do some sort of sincere service, they come forward. This is helping me immensely, and then we are doing good work here. This is one another same slum area we are now carrying on there. This is the second item I just said. The third social work is where I stayed for my education. It is a hostel. It is called the New Slim Hostel. It was 1940, more than 70 years ago. I was a student in the pre-university class. It is called as the intermediate in those days. I am the president of that university for a long time, and then doing some good work. And land was there, and then land was utilized and to yield some income, a commercial complex. We built commercial complexes that are yielding. Out of that, we have built some more. There are hardly about 30-40 students at that time, no more than nearly 200, more than 180 students are there studying it. So I am taking that interest. The another thing is I am not directly responsible for the administration, but then morally supporting it. It is not in Mysore, but in Chikmagalur. It is called as the Mountain View Institution. It is a sprawling 35 acres of land. Even Chikmagalur was an area where Indira Gandhi was elected from that constituency. She came to our campus, gave a lecture also from that area, and then more than 2,000 studies from KG to IG is also a very great success. It is run by our own family, my wife's younger sister by name Azra. She is responsible. From here, I give only the moral support, but I don't claim that I am directly administering that kind of a thing. Yet another institution I am directly, at present, interested is, perhaps tomorrow we will go there. It is called Muslim Welfare, Central Muslim Welfare Council, CMW, CMWC, Central Muslim Welfare Council. There I am happy of one project particularly. They are doing several things also. It is microfinance, particularly women. We are adopting the same pattern which in Bangladesh that Muhammad Anis, he had adopted. 5 women, collateral secretary, every week they have to pay, and we don't give much money, only 4,000 or 2,000, 3 or 4, maximum is 5,000, and they return. Not much defaulters. So it is quite nearly 1,000 women, 1,000 families, about 25 to 30 lakhs of rupees are being rolled there. That is one thing I am also interested there. Another thing is there in Srirangapattam again, there is another experiment going on, Darul Umur. This Darul Umur is the name which Tipu gave to the university at the time he started. There was hardly any time at that time to make it. Darul Umur means technical institute. Umur is the plural of Amar. Amar means work as skill and all that. He wanted a technical school. So that name is continued, and a very wealthy man is investing a lot of money. What we do there, invite the people from the mosques, the religious section, who do not know anything secular. Give them computer training, engineering, science, philosophy, history and all that. I am also a trustee of that. I go everywhere to teach them history and so on. I take personal interest in that kind of. Darul Umur is another thing, social service I am doing. Fifth also is once again related to Allama Iqbal. Started about 20 years ago and a kind of a study center. That's Iqbal we call it. Religiously we meet about 40-50 people every month to lecture, debate, discussion on philosophy, message, poetry and thought of Allama Iqbal. It is also going on. So what I feel happy is that the Muslims start one thing on Sunday, they exist until another Sunday or another Monday, and then they die thereafter. They don't have any long life at all. Therefore, are struggling that whatever we start must continue. But I am also say that everywhere I am not successful. Failure also. A man who is there in the battle, sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, he gets wounded. So the failure in my place was, I wanted in 1998 to start Sir Syed Hall as a memorial to that great man. I got the land also. I got the license also. When the construction work used to be started, people started abusing. They took life out of me. It was a very serious problem, and then I had to give up that project at all. So we have been in this way in the social work doing something. We are now more interested in consolidating the things that we have started. And the addition means great responsibilities also. Our job is that to find the right type of personnel. Fortunately, we have a secretary who is very dynamic, but then the load also every time is very, very heavy. And then you could understand that I am also growing old. And then I'm interested more in the writing part of it. My pen, many a time I have written my autobiography in which the last sentence is this: मुझे दुनिया से क्या मतलब, क़लम होगा वतन अपना, किताबों में दफन होंगे वरक़ होगा कफन अपना. I am not much concerned with the affairs of this world. I am interested only in the pen, and I think the books will be the place where I buried, and then the pages will be the coffin which will cover my body. So when this is the situation, I am not very fond of every time having new projects. But then the existing one, I am very interested in see that the quality improves, and they discharge the duties they do, and they are more fruitful. If possible, we may start 1 or 2 schools, but not in large number. See, I am very fond of Urdu poets like Mir Taqi Mir, then Ghalib, then Iqbal, then Hali and Shibli. They are great poets of their time, and many a time very fond of that. So I may just recite 1 or 2. So this Mir Taqi Mir. आई नज़र जो गोरे ग़रीबां पे एक रोज़ कूचे पे उस मज़ार के था ये रक़म हुआ, ऐ सरकशान खींचा था हम भी सर, पाया ने कार मोर का नक्शे क़दम हुआ. This means a man was going and he saw a tomb and asked him, whose tomb is this? They said, it is the tomb of Prophet Suleiman. And then near the tomb there was an inscription where it was saying, don't be haughty. I was also like the Paya ne kare mor ke nakshe khazam hua. The tradition says that Prophet Suleiman died standing, holding a staff in his hand, and that staff had been all eaten away by the ants within the staff. For a long time he was standing, but then when the whole thing broke, the staff fell down and he also fell down. So it is that आई नज़र ब गोर सुलेमा पे एक रोज़ कूचे पे उस मज़ार के था ये रकम हुआ, ऐ सरकशान जहान में खींचा था हम भी सर, पाया ने कार मोर का नक्शे कदम हुआ. That is small ants and their legs are still smaller and they crave in the staff they eat it, and then the staff is broken and the man dies. So if a man, many a time I read this because for nothing at all, Bush went and invaded Iraq, humanity, several people, not realizing what would happen to the invaders, to the aggressors also. There's a lot of meaning kind of a thing. So poetry, as I said, is very meaningful. It touches the heart also, stirs the soul also, moves the people also, and teaches also delightfully. So I remember quite a few and all that kind of a thing. See, Allama Iqbal say how love is born. Love is born. चमक तारे से मांगी, चांद से दागे जिगर मांगा, उड़ाई तीर की थोड़ी सी जुल्फ़े बरहम से, तड़प बिजली से पाई, हूर से पाकीज़गी पाई, हरारत ली नफस आए मसीह इब्ने मरियम से, ज़रा सी फिर रुबूअत से शान बेनियाज़ी ली, मलक से आजिज़ी तक़दीर शबनम ली, फिर नज़ा को घोला चश्मा हैवान के पानी में, मुरक्कब ने मोहब्बत नाम पाया अश्क आज़म से. Let me give the meaning of this. What he says is, I borrowed a little light from the moon, chamak tare se, from the star, chamak tare se mangi, chand se daage jigar manga. There's a little black spot on the moon also that I want. Urai tirigi zulfe barham se. The lady will have black hair, therefore the night also is black. I took little black color from the hair of a lady. Tadab bijli se pai, bijli is thunder kind of tadab bijli se pai. Hoor se paki, hoor is malaik, angels and so on and so forth. Harat lai nafas hai masiyavne. That means from Jesus Christ, it is a reference to Jesus. Hararat li nafas hai Masih ibn Maryam se. Zarasi rubu se shane bene azili, from God. He is all powerful, mighty. Fir udai takdi. Then he just mixed up the entire thing. Love was born on that. A mixture of several elements of nature. He has beautifully described. It's a very long poem it is there, kind of a thing. तू अगर खुददार है मिन्नत कशे साखी न बन, आइन दरिया में हुआ वासा पैमाना कर, खाक में तुझको मुक़द्दर ने मिलाया है अगर, तू ऐसा उस्ताद से पैदा मिसाले दाना कर. What he says, self-help is best thing. A kind of, don't be crazy of asking something from others. Self-help, he gives a lot of meaning about that kind of it. My life also is interesting. Adversity, coming from the poorer section of the society, struggling very hard with zeal, but trying to do something. I have a very simple philosophy, it is called be good, do good. Stand up and fight if you think you are right. Don't expect service from others, serve others. Serve others not for award, for reward, only to please God. Let your inside or outside be the same, no hypocrisy. Shun malice, hatred, jealousy, anger. Avoid all evil and bad things. Let your courage be sedate, speech be measured, voice be deep, never be in a hurry. Then be like a marshal or a general in a war to win the battle of life, as if he collects all the resources to win the battle. Whatever resources God has given to you, utilize, muster, kind of a thing. Now we have a great poet and a philosopher of the medieval period, Sheikh Sadi, Gulistan ka naam aapne suna hoga. He has given a very simple formula how to lead a good family, how to lead a good life and so on and so on. He says, Zar, Nazar, Khabar, Sabar, Muqaddar, The first thing is you must have something in your pocket. Don't ask. Be in a position to give something to others, not ask for it. Zar means money. You have some money with you. Then nazar, he says. Nazar is not merely eye, it is insight. It is seeing from, we call it basirat. So you have an insight into everything, see the depth, go to the meaning of that. Zar, nazar. He says khabar. Khabar means information. Keep yourself fully informed about. And how valuable this word is, your electronic media, your mobile phone, your cell phone, all the pleasant thing, it all gives you information. Khabar. Not half, but khaybere khabar kind of a thing. Zar, nazar, khabar. Then he says muqaddar also. Ultimately, it is God's will, what is destiny, what is there in the fate, and so on. So, a number of, because I am supposed to have written something on Shibli, Hali, so on. Something sticks my mind and they help me, kind of a thing. Building a philosophy of this life is very essential also.
For iOS, Professor Ali has words of appreciation.
They are rendering human service to the society in several sectors of life. Their record has been very, very impressive. Very impressive in the sense they have so long conducted more than 1,000 seminars, workshops, conferences here and there. They have undertaken the publication program, and the publication program itself, more than 250 books have been brought out. The very fact that one institution from Delhi has now become 6 different chapters in different places, in Ahmedabad, in Aligarh, in Patna, in Calcutta, in Chennai, in Calicut, they have started.
iOS, upholding the tradition of Lifetime Achievement Awards that began with Justice A.M. Ahmadi and to Imarat-e-Sharia in 2010 to Dr. A.R. Kidwai. The
हफ्त किश्वर जिससे हो तस्खीर बेतेगो तुफूं तू अगर समझे तो तेरे पास ये सामान भी है क़ुव्वत अक़्ल क़ुव्वत फ़िक्र क़ुव्वत इस्तेमाल क़ुव्वत तमीज़ क़ुव्वत सब्र क़ुव्वत फ़ैसला क़ुव्वत इरादा.
The 4th iOS Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor B. Sheikh Ali, former Vice-Chancellor of Mangalore and Goa Universities, a tribute to his dedication to education, tracing his steps, a continuing quest, even in the autumn of his life, to build and develop sustainable institutions of learning in Mysore, to instill values in education, bringing pride, confidence, and self-esteem in learning at all stages. Through poetry, he shares the meaning of life.
जिंदगी बजुज़ ईसार व क़ुरबानी कुछ नहीं, जिंदगी भड़क उठने का नाम नहीं, बुझ जाने का भी नाम नहीं, जिंदगी सिलगते रहने का नाम है. जिंदगी एक बोझ है, उसको उठाना होगा, एक फरीज़ा है, उसको अंजाम देना होगा. जिंदगी का सफ़र मखमल व दीवा के रास्ते पर चल नहीं, कांटों पर चलना होगा. ज़िंदगी के तगाज़ों के लिए हम एक मकसद के लिए जीना होगा.
Remaining focused and alert at work, Professor Sheikh Ali is a historian dedicated to his craft, creating time to share his knowledge, penning his thoughts for scholars of today and tomorrow. From Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, he continues to draw inspiration.
He is a gift of God to the society, a great leader, a great thinker, a great speaker, a great rationalist, a great moralist, a nationalist who tried his level best to help. He had two very important areas to serve. One is politics, the other is religion. He wanted to bring the Muslims into the mainstream of nationalism. He differed from the Aligarh school of thought, which were now called the loyalists of the rulers. He wanted to change his Al-Hilal, Al-Bilal, his media were all only to change the situation of the masses. Maulana Azad also wanted to see that a secular, democratic, liberal government could be established. He wanted also to see that in this country a composite culture could exist, a composite culture where all religions, he was aware of the rich heritage of this land. He was the only person who stood for indivisible, integrated, united Indian nationalism. Others, leaders, great leaders made a kind of a compromise. Even Gandhiji and Sardarji Patel and Panditji, they all made compromise, but he did not. He wanted India to remain united, indivisible. That is his greatest contribution. But he was extremely successful in the other part, namely his religious thought. He is called as the Imamul Hind. He was very liberal. He is the commentator of Quran and very liberal interpretation of Quran. He was the first education ministers of this country who thought we need a number of temples of learning. Although he was an Orientalist, profound in Arabic and Persian, he was aware of the modern needs of skill and technology. Therefore, he started a chain of institutions of excellence in science, in technology, in skill all over the country. India later on reaped the fruit of his vision. I could say as early as 1904, Allama Iqbal wrote in magazine that औरतों की तालीम की तवज्जो सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है। औरत तमद्दुन की जड़ होती है। माँ और बीवी दो ऐसे प्यारे लफ्ज़ हैं जिसमें सारी नेकियां मुस्ततिर हैं। इसलिए सबसे ज़रूरी है कि औरतों की तालीम पर तवज्जो हम दें। जो कौम औरतों की तालीम पर तवज्जो नहीं देती उस कौम का मुस्तक़बिल तारीख होता है। I'm very sorry to say that we have not been paying enough attention to women's education. It is all very essential. We need a number of non-governmental organizations. We must not look only to the government for help. We must start our own educational institution. For that, everyone, the wealthy section, the religious section, the political leaders, and the social activities must all come into this field in order to build minority educational institution. बेइल्म भी हम लोग, गफलत भी है जारी, अफसोस के अंधे भी हम और सो भी रहे हैं. Long ago, Akbar Allahabadi said, this position must change because Muslims particularly have to remember a kind of saying of Maulana Azad that इक़रा की पहली वही से मालिक ने इस्लाम का दामन इल्म से बांध दिया था. If only we remember, this will go a long way in order to solve the problem of minority education.
Sir Syed Ahmad Khan's message reverberates through his words.
The great social reform of the 19th century. In order to appreciate the work of Sir Syed, we have to view what had happened in the 1857. The position was extremely bad, particularly of the Muslims who were characterized as the terrorists of the day. He changed the position. He shaped the destiny of the Muslims. He took them towards the modernity. He reconciled the Western intellectualism with the Indian traditionalism. First he said, इल्म के ख़ज़ानों पर कब्ज़ा जमाओ, catch the treasure of knowledge. अपने तारीख़ी विरसे को मजबूत पकड़ो, hold on to your cultural treasures. He also said, अपनी मदद आप करो, hold on, help yourself. Self-help is the best help. Don't expect anything. Have an eye on your own weaknesses and shortcomings. अपनी खामियों पर नज़र रखो. He also said that respect all religions. मज़हब का एहतराम करो. He said, इज़्ज़त शख्सी नहीं होती, मिल्ली होती है. Honor and glory does not belong to individuals. It belongs to the community and to the society. अल्लाह का हुक्म तहरीरी नहीं आता, हालात से पाया जाता है. Look at the writings on the wall. Almighty God will not send you in writing any kind of a message. You have to read with the happening, what is happening here. It was Zakir Hussain who initiated me into the educational field. I was in Goa when Khurshid Alam Khan Sahab was the governor of that place. Khurshid Alam Khan Sahab asked who is to write the history of life and times of Zakir Hussain. He pitched upon me, gave a timetable, and then they said that I will feed you the material within this material time, within this scheduled time you have to write. So I work hard night and day and then completed. When I studied Zakir Hussain, it greatly fascinated me, greatly fascinated. One of the greatest educationists of our land, who was himself influenced by Christian Taylor, another great educationist of Germany. And that man gave two very important ideas, almost revolutionary ideas in educational field. One is all education must be based on the culture of the community. He called it as cultural goods. You can't go away from our roots, from our traditions, from our culture. All education must be based on the cultural too. The second important thing was the activity school. Any knowledge which is not applied knowledge is no knowledge at all. You link education. We don't need work, we don't need book schools, we need work schools. You remember that God has given 3 H. One is head, the other is heart, the third is hand. Use all the 3, head, heart and hand, in order to be education. It is knowledge, skill and wisdom. It move on from place to place. It is a creative work. Therefore, Zakir Hussain said that the resurgence of a country could take place through not the narrow gates of politics, but only the floodgates of education.
The 4th iOS Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor B. Sheikh Ali